loads has happened. So this always happens. So since we agreed to do this,
Yes.
it's like, to be honest, mate, something crazy happens every fucking day. But loads has happened with stuff that we can talk about.
Yeah.
CTD for one of them.
Oh, yeah.
So have you had any blowback from that at your place?
Yes and no. I mean, we were relatively fortunate because we kept a control on what we were doing, despite them doing what they were doing to try and get us to supply more product.
Really?
But at the end of the day, it's really sad what's happened. Of course it is. But, we were protected to a point which was good.
What were they trying to do with you lot?
Well, they just kept placing bigger and bigger orders.
Really?
And we sort of looked at it.
How close to the end were they doing that?
Oh, they were doing this right up to the end. We stopped supplying them. I'm going to say it was mid-July, I think, maybe even end of June. We stopped supplying because they were just, like they were with everybody, just out with terms on every front, So obviously it created a little bit of tension between the two businesses, but we stood our ground. Why supply something if A, you're not going to pay it, B, you're over your credit limit, C, why are you wanting so much stock when, you look at the figures that you sent us, you haven't even sold half of what you've already got.
Yeah. So a lot of the time, you as a supplier and me as a supplier, I kind of know what customers' shops are selling. So you can pull them up. They might genuinely make a mistake on an order and you'd be like, "Are you sure that you want that?" That kind of helpful feedback. But also, if they're doing things like what you've just said, you're like, something else is going on.
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
From your perspective, Shane, you'll understand this. It has an impact on other customers when they are trying to buy so much. And we've got other customers that we need to protect as well.
So, as a supplier, your forecasting's pretty good usually.
Yes.
It's never correct because everyone knows forecasting's never correct, and you can have anomalies that like throw you out every now and again. But in general, you kind of know what you'll be selling. And if someone like CTD, who, to be honest, previously, like maybe 6 months ago, they would be considered, we'll just do whatever they want because they're massive. Same as Top. So anyone like that, if they come in and say, listen, we want 10 times more than we usually take, you'd probably give it to them. Before you knew all this shit. So they could really throw out your forecasting. And then you have to say to another customer who might be smaller, sorry, we haven't got what you want. And that's why I like dealing with independents. The big boys eventually always shit on you one way or another.
Well, they do. We're obviously, and we'll go into this as we talk through, but, we're obviously now part of BEWI, which is a massive corporation. And being a corporate company, they like dealing with the big boys as well as the independents, But dealing with the big boys definitely has its challenges. There's no doubt about it,
Well, it's like...
If I'm being honest, I saw this back in, I would say probably October, November time. I saw, I wouldn't say the writing on the wall, that's not right. But what I saw was, this is not going to be the business that they want it to be,
Do you know, this sounds really arrogant, I suppose, but do you know when I knew the writing was on the wall?
Go on.
When Saint-Gobain sold it to that company.
Aurelius.
Obviously. What did they think they were going to do? It doesn't take. You don't have to Google much to see what they do. They don't make businesses better. They don't. They've got zero record of doing that. And in the UK specifically, they've literally bankrupted multiple businesses. That's their thing.
You're right.
That's their thing. That's what I'd love to speak to someone from that company, and you'll never will because it's clear what their fucking game is.
Yep.
Look what they did to the Body Shop. The Body Shop.
Lloyd's Chemist. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Body Shop it was sold for $1 billion. It was £1 billion sale, right? Before whenever it was, the previous owners, and then struggles, whatever. They agreed to buy it for 200 million or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Do you know how much they actually paid for it in the end?
Go on.
3.5 million. So
You're joking.
Yeah, they put up 3.5 million for basically £1 billion company, because it was. Yeah, it was struggling, but I've read about it, and it's like in this day and age when it's important to have a good ESG score, and I talked about ESG score with the previous guest, which is like ethical sourcing and Body Shop. That is the Body Shop. They've always done that.
Yeah, of course it is.
They're vegan. They're a vegan company. So they were well placed to. They might have been struggling because of online. They weren't as big as they used to be, and all the rest of it, online sales, blah blah blah. But it should have been attractive to investors. But as soon as that company gets involved, you know what's going to happen. They've done it. You don't have to. I haven't read much. You don't have to search very far to see what they've done previously. It's a fucking disgrace. So that's the Body Shop, Lloyd's, whatever. However many people lost a job there, and they don't just lose the job. They lose the pay, the redundancy, the fucking everything, and the people that have to bail them out is us, which is fair because that's how we're set up in this country. So the taxpayer, so hundreds and hundreds of jobs being lost, the taxpayer paying out. I presume it runs into the billions eventually to the staff, which is fair. I'm not complaining about that, but it's costing the country money. And in the meantime, this company. The German, aren't they? Are they German?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
They're allowed to continue to buy other big brands from the UK who also employ hundreds and hundreds of people. And then they do the exact same thing. Again, they did it with a bookstore. I can't remember now. They've done it with a few companies. An online, what were they called? Ideal bathroom. Oh, not Ideal Bathrooms. Ideal something. Online company. They did it with them. They've got zero record of improving businesses, especially in the UK. All they've ever done is fucking destroy them. So that's why I say it sounds daft, and I probably never thought of it at the time, but as soon as they were involved, that was it. Writing's on the wall. They've got fucking no record of ever doing anything other than that. So that's obviously what they're going to do.
Yeah, the only company that I understand that they haven't done that with, but I don't think they're in a great shape, is the Foot Asylum.
I didn't know they own them.
Yeah, it's the only one that I'm aware of that, and I don't think they're in a great shape, but they're still there.
Is the Foot Asylum just the Foot Asylum? Are they not part of anything else?
No.
That's a Scottish business, isn't
it? I think it was.
Yeah. I'll look into that.
But I think when you look back at, Aurelius coming in and investing in CTD, there was such a big presentation by the CTD people that this was going to be the company that would take them on. So they obviously, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to them, but they obviously haven't done their due diligence either.
It's not Saint-Gobain. Yeah, you can't blame.
Interested in just selling the stuff.
Yeah, you can't blame CTD staff, even though there might have been a few of them that were probably aware of. Oh, fucking hell, not this law. They're only ever going to try the best, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you've got whoever the directors were of CTD. You can't blame them because they're going to present to their staff because they probably mean it. This is what we're going to do. We've got new owners now, and they're going to let us. And they've probably said exactly the same again. Now Top's own them. We've got new owners, nothing will change, blah, blah, blah. And we know everything fucking changes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They'll either be a success or not, but they won't be the same.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can blame the staff. You could possibly say some of them probably knew exactly what was going to happen. And it's corporations, in it. I hate the corporate world, I do. To operate in the corporate world, you've got to be very morally suspect. If you've got any morals at all, or you don't like keeping your mouth shut, i.e. me,
you're not going to last in the corporate world then, are you?
You could probably get on, you could probably survive, but you won't have a good time.
Yeah.
It'll be a bad time for you, because you're just swimming with fucking snakes, people
In a lot of
people
cases,
who don't care.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the corporate world, mate. That's
Yeah.
Corporate places are like that. And to be honest, and another thing that kind of happens with this stuff is so Tops have now taken it on. And I don't like slagging people off or companies off, but unless like it's something like Aurelius who fucking deserve it, and they can come on and talk to me if they want and explain why they don't deserve it, great, prove me wrong. But there was no need if people really cared about CTD staff. This is the biggest fucking problem I've got with it. Hundreds and hundreds of people have lost their job. CTD, I doubt it was a failing business. Like, why do companies go into administration? Usually because it's a failing business or whatever the reasons are.
Yep.
I doubt CTD was that bad. It might have been down for this year like everybody else probably is, 30 or 40% sales. But I doubt they were bad enough where they were like, oh no, we need to collapse and everyone needs to lose the job. They could have saved everybody's job. Tops Tiles could have saved everybody's job, but they didn't. They waited until it was actually the administration had started or whatever the proper term for that is, and then chose the assets that they wanted. Fuck everybody's job. we're not, and I get it. It's like why should they be friendly? And it's a corporate decision, the strategic decision. But there's I don't know how many hundreds of people with no job told on the day you've got no job, no fucking money, no redundancy. I don't know what happens with the pension, but I presume that's gone. It's gone. And Tops. And that's only a few hundred people in a big country like this. They get lost. They're forgotten about. The day or the week that it happened, maybe there was a bit of attention, but it's gone now. They're forgotten about. There's millions and millions of people in this country. Those 300 or 400 staff or whatever it is, who are probably struggling now, all of them. Because who wouldn't be? If you were told one day, you've got no job now, and also you've got no fucking money either, go and ask the government. Everyone would be in a bad position there.
Of course they would.
So for me, that's the worst part about it all, that they've been shit on so poorly. And I saw a comment in one of the groups. Now, so there was a lot of PR after this. You probably supply Tops, so I don't expect you to say much about them, but there was a lot of PR after within the trade that Tops are getting a bit too big, blah blah blah, and whatever. I'm not involved in any of that. They might be, they might not be. People have got their own opinions. So there were a few days after that, because there was a lot of bad press came out after it was announced that Tops took them over. Then a few days after that, there was another announcement from Tops themselves, and it was a little bit like, so you know the Tilers group, Tilers community.
Yes.
There's a lot of companies involved that immediately were like, if you've lost your job, put on this group where you are, and we'll try and help you out. And there was companies, other groups were getting involved, people on LinkedIn, whatever. And then a few days after that, Tops put something out that was like I say, they can come on and prove me wrong if they want, but in my opinion, that was a face-saving, we need to put something out that makes us look a bit better than we're looking at the moment. And it was it seems good on the face of it. If anybody from CTD needs a job, you can always go to our website, we're here to support you, blah blah blah. But then I've seen comments from staff, CTD staff on other groups. They've been made redundant from shops that aren't even fucking closing. And like I said, I saw a couple who comment, so that's a couple of comments within a few hundred people who've lost their job. So they really do get lost in all the bullshit. They're completely forgotten about, those lads are, apart from maybe people who worked with them. I'd like to know more about them. Why have you been made redundant from a store that's not even closing? Why have they done that?
Sure.
What's the excuse? Because they're just taking advantage of the whole scenario to cut people while they can, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah, Tops are a corporate organisation. They've got a plan. What that plan is, you know, it will always be relative conjecture as to
what it's to have a big
what
share of
it
the
is,
market.
you know.
So it's a £1 billion industry. It's probably more than £1 billion now, because that was
Yeah.
numbers from Tops want a big slice of it. Simple as that.
Yeah. And it's like any retail company, isn't it? You know, they've
of
got
course.
multiple. They want as big a slice as they possibly can within the limits or the constraints that Monopolies Commission or whoever
What if they
put
got
in
about
place.
they've got about 20%, 20 to 25% now?
I would think so.
It's probably close to 30% now with the
Yeah.
CTD.
Yeah.
It's
a considerable amount.
Yeah, it's a large share of, because there's so many companies involved. It's such a fragmented market, really. There's like hundreds and hundreds of companies. So the rest of that, it's more than £1 billion. I think it's let's say it's £1 billion industry, but it's over that now.
Yes.
There's a lot of other companies involved in the rest of that 70%. So Tops way more powerful than all of those companies individually.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sure people like, you know, because they're part of the industry, I'm sure that people like B&Q, Wix would maybe sort of contest that. But, you know, as a standalone business that is tile-centric, then yes, you know, they're very powerful.
Yeah, you'd have to take their tile bit out. B&Q are different, aren't they? B&Q and Wix. Yeah. You'd have to take their tile section out and say, all right, they're probably still fucking massive in the grand scheme of things with just tiles, but yeah, it's not the tile industry. Not specialists, are they?
No.
Wow.
No. So there's, as you say, there is lots going on in the industry at the minute. Is it all good? Probably not. Is it all bad? No, I don't think it's all bad. But you know, on the CTD thing, yes, you've got the staff, but the thing I keep thinking about is as well, you know, the wee guy that ran the butty van that would come round the shops now can't pay his supplier because there's not a branch there for him to be able to get his 4, you know, bacon buns every morning or whatever. So there's little things like that have a knock-on effect as well.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's what, so these companies that come in, they're basically a fucking destroyer of companies. What is Aurelius? It's a Roman fucking name, isn't it? I'm going to look up what they name. So they've named themselves after Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah. They're basically just asset strip.
They're arseholes, mate.
Basically what they do, you know.
Arseholes.
So and it's sad because, you know, when you go in and you asset strip a company that was profitable, you can now understand why it's now no longer profitable, and they have to go into administration.
It's a funny thing,
because they've just stripped everything out of it.
Yeah, I suppose how profitable were they? I'd love to know, but I suppose we'll never know because it was undisclosed what they actually paid for CTD, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I can tell you that if you Google it, you can figure out that they paid nothing themselves. So they didn't. So you know the small amount that they paid for Body Shop, which is hilarious if you read about that. But they paid nothing for CTD. It was a loan based on CTD's assets.
Wow. Okay.
And even that was undisclosed. It was some complicated fucking deal with another German company. And if you read about them, they do a lot of that. They get other German administrators involved and other German investors involved, or like specialist carve out fucking what this, that, and the other stuff.
Yeah.
I don't really understand things like that, but they're basically specialist vultures. That's what they are. Yeah.
And you know, you've got to hand it to them in one respect. They're good at what they do. You know.
Who wants to be good at that though? What kind of people are they? They're wankers.
I remember somebody saying to me a long time ago, when I was at Genesis, that there was a customer I dealt with who was continually going in and out of administration. And I said, you know what? He's a really nice guy. And I said, nice guys don't do that. And I thought, you know what? Yeah, you're right. You know, he's good at what he does, but nice guys don't do that. Yeah. And then somebody said, well, how does he sleep at night? And I just turned around and said, well, very well. Because he's not got the problems that you've got.
Yeah.
Which is trying to get your money in.
Well, people like that do sleep well at night. It's the same as a cowboy tradesman. I speak to a lot of tilers about this. I'm like, well, if you're a tiler, I always say this: you've either got OCD or you're a cowboy. There's no in between, really. You either care too much and you've made yourself ill, or you don't give a fuck and you sleep very well. They're the two types, and there's more cowboys around than you think as well.
Yeah, I use a phrase often. I think there's a lot of tilers out there that have only ever slept with a tiler.
Really?
Not a nice phrase to use, I know. Yeah. Not from a professional man, but I think there's a lot of them just haven't got a clue, you know. Or as you say, are cowboys.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But
they're not tradesmen.
No.
They're probably plumbers as well. They're probably fucking decorators as well. That's exactly the kind of people we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Criminals.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. You know, but they get away with it, and unfortunately, we're in a country that allows it.
Yeah.
You know, until somebody takes a stand and changes it, and it has to come from the top level, it's not going to change. People are still going to go into administration and come out of it.
So this is right. So I don't think we've ever had a prime minister that cares about this country. Not in my memory, anyway. You know, like I bet you've got people who work for you at work. So, like, you might look after some trainees or, I don't know, whoever's your team. You fucking care about them. I guarantee you that you care about people you work with.
Yeah.
So the higher up you go, if you ended up being the head of BEWI, you don't stop caring about the people that work for you. You just got more people that you care about now. You genuinely care about them. But we talked about corporate people, and they probably fucking don't. But that's the ideal. You genuinely care about people who are... It's the wrong word to use, but under you, like you're supposed to look after them.
No, you're right.
So if I was the prime minister, or this is why I think the prime minister should be like, if someone like Aurelius asset stripped a company once, you'd be like, all right, you get him in. You could literally, it's not like you could just go and speak to him man for man. Say, come here, you're doing business in my country. These are people who I'm supposed to be looking after, and they're losing their jobs. You're taking away, you're a fucking creditor to the business, so you're taking all the assets yourself anyway. We're paying from our tax bill, their wages. So this is your first warning. You've not technically broken the law, but we're going to investigate it, so don't do it again. And if they did it again, you'd be like, right, that's it, sorry. You don't do business in this country anymore. You're not helping us. The body shop's gone. Thousands of jobs, hundreds of jobs, whatever. £1 billion gone from GDP, fucked off. It's probably gone to wherever because it doesn't exist anymore. Plus the billions that we've had to pay out for pensions or whatever. You just say to them, sorry, we don't want your fucking business. You're not contributing, you're just taking. Go away. Go and do business in Germany. You might technically be legal, but we're not interested. Fuck off. But we don't tend to do that. I guarantee you, if you ask the Prime Minister, any Prime Minister, I've got no preference on Labour, Tory, don't give a fuck, don't like any of them.
Sure.
But they will, the first thing they'll do is brush it off. Oh, it's not really my department, that's down to the office of blah, 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 and they set all the rules for that, so I've got no control over it. You're like, fucking hell. And it's like, no one cares, mate. That's why it keeps happening.
No. Yeah.
And it'll keep happening.
I think that, you know, from an Aurelius point of view, I think strategically they were very cute, because obviously Lloyd's Chemist went first, then it was the Body Shop, but they'd already had CTD at this point.
Yeah.
So, you know, you and I, as sort of insiders, because we're in the industry, could see, well, this is going to go the same way. But you know, you would have thought that by now, taking a 200 million, 300 million pound loss on Lloyd's, a 300 million pound loss on Body Shop, and then whatever the loss is whenever they're posted on CTD,
they lose nothing.
Have got to.
Aurelius lose nothing.
Oh no, Aurelius lose nothing, but as a business,
they've ruined
the losses that are posted.
They're a destroyer. Destroy. It was. Yeah. So you could say, all right, technically, the Body Shop and Lloyd's hadn't gone by the time they took CTD on. They're just opportunists, aren't they? Like, fucking hell. Like,
of course.
There's another one. Let's do that.
Yeah.
But There's still, if you don't, like I say, I'm not an expert in this field at all. I talk nonsense, and if people want to come on and prove me wrong, they can. But even before they got Body Shop and Lloyd's, they still had a record of fucking businesses up previously.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. It's like what? So you could argue Saint-Gobain were a little bit negligent. They knew, but they don't care. No, when it's money, so venture capitalists, right? It's just lumps of money. The money doesn't care about people, doesn't give a shit. It's just a lump of money. We need to put it somewhere and build it, or whatever they're going to do with it. And there's a couple of people controlling, pulling the levers, and they know what they're doing. We're going to strip that, and you'll go there and sell all the shops in Europe, and happy days, we'll make 10 million out of this and 2 million out of that. And in the meantime, there's fucking thousands of people and billions of pounds of UK GDP gone. It's a joke.
Yeah.
I'd like to get someone from Tops. I've asked for someone from Tops before, though. I doubt they'll ever come on and speak to me, just to get their view on it, because they could have saved the whole business. Could have.
Yeah, but you sort of look at it and think, if they'd saved the whole business, would that have taken them over the market share, which would have made the Monopolies Commission look at it? That's one thing.
Is there a percentage for that?
I think there must be, but I don't know what that percentage is. Otherwise there wouldn't be a Monopolies Commission, would there?
I wonder what it is.
Because I know that whenever BEWI acquired Jackon, we had to divest a couple of companies, and they had to divest a couple of companies to go through.
Really?
Not in the UK, but within Europe. So there must be something somewhere.
Yeah, the EU. Yeah, the EU are strict on stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, I worked for Sumitomo. So Sumitomo are like multi-billion Japanese firm. They're into everything. But I worked at automotive wiring harnesses division, and they were fined one year when I worked there. So all the Japanese companies, there's a few Japanese companies that make wiring harnesses, and what they do is they tend to move around the world together. So at one point they're all in Poland, so there's 3 or 4 big boys. I can't remember all of them now, but they're the wiring harness industry, 3 or 4 big boys, and they move around the world together, so that they were all in Poland at one point, so they can kind of control wages, and no one pays more than you can literally go across the road for 50 pence an hour more or whatever. That's the kind of thing they do, literally across the road as well, next to each other. They got fined. So Sumitomo themselves were the whistleblowers.
Okay.
And they went to the EU and said, we've been fixing prices. They probably got caught and they were like, shit, we're going to get caught. Let's just pretend we're the whistleblower. So they whistleblew, we're fixing prices on wiring harnesses or whatever it was. It was something to do with plastics or whatever. And all of the so Sumitomo, I can't remember the numbers, but this was the kind of numbers it was. So Sumitomo got fined like 90 million or 190 million or something like that because they got a discount. And the others got like crazy fines for price fixing or creating a monopoly in areas where they can control. So yeah, there is something. It's probably just in the EU though. I'm going to look it up after this. Sometimes I look things up while people are talking, but I need someone else to do that for me because it just kills the fucking conversation. And I get carried away. As soon as I get to Google and start searching for stuff, I'll be back an hour later and it's like, right, I found loads of stuff out for
it. Yeah, sure.
So that's that. What else has happened that's not on the list? The Olympics happened. Didn't you go to France?
Yeah, they did. We actually, my wife and I, Linda and I actually enjoyed the Olympics. When I was younger, I was a swimmer, so I've always enjoyed the swimming. Yeah. So, from that perspective, I enjoy it, but I always enjoy the relays and things like that. But I did have a bit of a laugh when you see things like the BMX in the Olympics. Come on, it's skateboarding. There was something else. I don't remember what it was, and you think
it's all right.
Not really Olympic sports,
Well,
maybe I'm just old.
Yeah,
You know,
what are the Olympic sports? Really?
I mean, to me,
Javelin.
it's technically, it's why you know, it's your top five, really, isn't it? You know, athletics. Obviously, the triathlon would be included in that. Cycling, running. Running is athletics. Swimming. But I don't mind things like the rowing. I think that's quite.
I think it's good
Quite a good thing to
for
watch.
amateurs.
Yeah.
Or they're the best in the world, but they're classed as amateurs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's good for anything that's an amateur sport, in my opinion, because it's like the pinnacle of that sport then. So like football and stuff's weird because it's like...
Well, you know, because sometimes you get the occasional
tennis.
Professional that's playing there as well, and you sort of think, well, wait a minute, you know, that
all
is not what the
footballers,
Olympics is about.
All footballers
you know?
are professional, even if it's under 23 into in the Olympics.
Yeah.
But they're all professionals. They're all famous.
Of course they're
fucking millionaires by then.
Yeah, they're all signed on somewhere, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, so
and the tennis is literally just the tennis players, the best in the world.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point in that? So I think it's good for the amateur sports. I don't mind skateboarding and BMXing because it's something for them to work towards, isn't it? Like the pinnacle of what they do.
So. Yeah. Maybe I'm just old school because neither can I skateboard nor ride a BMX. So, you know, for me, but you know, you look at it and you think actually what they're doing is good.
It's amazing.
You know, they're very good at it.
The thing I didn't like is I couldn't watch everything. So I it's crazy. Like it sounds stupid, but I wanted to show the kids like synchronized swimming and stuff like that. Just wasn't on.
Yeah.
Just what I bet it was, but I think it was on. What is it? Paramount. Yeah, it was paid for, and I haven't got it.
Yeah.
Eurosport and Paramount, I think.
Yeah.
I don't even know what Paramount is. Like, I thought that was like a movie studio.
I thought it was, well, yeah, but I thought it was a channel that was similar to sort of like a Prime or something where it showed certain movies and
that's
stuff
what
like
it is.
that.
That's what it is. It's a streaming service.
Yeah.
But so you couldn't watch synchronized swimming unless you paid for it.
Yeah. And no, I wasn't going to do that.
Do you want me to tell you the funniest, the breakdance? I know everybody talks about the breakdancer, but do you know what I'm talking about? The breakdancing Australian.
Yeah.
She was fucking hilarious. I refuse to believe that she wasn't taking the piss.
Right.
She has to be taking the piss. Did you see it?
I didn't see it, no, because again, that was one that I thought, why is that an Olympic sport? You know.
Well, it's a lot of people said that, but if you think about breakdancing, it's not anymore. It's gone. They're not going to have it again. But if you think about it, it's not a million miles away from gymnastics, rhythmic dancing, and things like that, is it? It's just a different style.
Trainers and loose jogging suits and stuff, don't you? Basically.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a baseball cap on the wrong way round.
It originated in the streets. That's why. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Australian, she has to be taking. It's going to come out that she's taking the piss. That it's satire. She can't be serious.
Right. Okay.
Look it up after. It's hilarious.
I will do it. Yeah.
She's got like an Australian cricket. She looks like she's going to play cricket. So you know everything you've just said about the clothes. No, not for her. She's wearing a cricket uniform.
Right.
And she does a dance that's like, she has to be taking the piss. It's hilarious. It's funny. When I saw it on the TV, I was like, very funny.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. But that I mean, it was a good 2 weeks or whatever length of time it was on, and you know, it got everybody.
Still there?
You.
Can you see me? Are you still there?
You still there, mate?
I'm still there. Can you hear me? Yeah. So what happens is so it's live and recording. Then it thinks I've left because the internet dropped. But I haven't left, I'm still there. So it's stuck in no man's land.
Yeah, sure. Right. Back again.
Right. I can hear you, but I can't see you. There we go. Sorry about that, mate.
That's all right.
It's my shite internet. So, no matter which company I go with, and I've just switched actually because I just always go with the cheapest because they're all shit for me.
Yeah.
The maximum speed that I can get on a good day when no one else is using it is 20 meg.
Oh wow, right, okay.
So most people are used to like 500 meg by now or more.
Yeah.
I get 20.
Are you out in the sticks or something?
No, that's the thing. I'm not even out in the sticks. It's like It's kind of... It kind of is, but kind of isn't. It's on the border of Stoke and Stafford, so...
Right, okay.
It's weird. I've talked about it before, so I've got a Stoke postcode.
Right.
I pay council tax to Stafford Borough, and when I vote for an area that I don't even live in. Because I live on the border.
Yeah.
It's like a mishmash. I just tell people I live in Stoke, but I suppose I don't. Right. I do and I don't.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, sure.
So it's kind of like, there's like Stoke, loads of traffic, loads of houses, probably got loads of good internet everywhere. And then you drive towards Stafford, and in between Stoke and Stafford is farms and country lane and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
I kind of live in the middle of that. But it's not... Okay. There's a lot of houses where I live. It's like a fairly big housing estate, so it's just awful. And on top of that, this street is unlucky as well, because we're the furthest away from the exchange, the box, whatever the fuck, whatever it's called. So it's slow anyway, but then we couldn't be further away, so it's even slower.
Right.
So that's why it cuts off like it just did. But no worries, I'll edit it out.
That's all right.
So we won't talk about what's been going on in the news. We'll forget about the news, because fuck me, mate. We could talk about all sorts since I last spoke to you.
Oh, we could, couldn't we?
It would be
exactly.
I don't know, Donald Trump, a businessman on a yacht.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Or Kamal or Camel or whatever you call it.
We won't talk about that. All right. So if you want to briefly explain what you do day to day, just tell everybody who you are and what you do on a day to day, and we'll take it from there, mate.
Yeah. So do you want me to start from when I get up, or just from my work?
Yeah.
Because it does vary, trust me. But yeah. So normally on a day-to-day basis, my role within BEWI would be to, or my official title is Business Development Manager. So it's developing business within the tiling sector, construction sector, bathroom sector, anything to do with tiling and plastering. That's part of my role, as well as mentoring and leading the sales team. Now, the sales team consists at the minute of 2 technical sales managers, one in the north, one in the south, and 2 agents. So basically, I would work with them to help develop the business.
So you're nationwide. You're the UK BDM
and Ireland. Yeah. Although my official title is BDM for the north.
All right.
Now, when I first started with the company, my area was basically Bristol North. And we had a guy in the south, so so basically south of the M4 corridor was his, and everything north was mine. Technically.
So have you been given this responsibility because, is it that old one where you're good at your job, it's not a promotion, we're just giving you more to do?
This is going to sound very what's the word I'm looking for here, but I remember somebody saying to me quite a few years ago, if anyone can, Mike McCann can. And I think that sort of, I've always been, I'll take it because I can, if you know what I mean. I
Work
enjoy
ethic.
what I do. Yeah. And I like to think I've got a relatively big capacity, but there are occasions where you drop the ball. Of course you do. But yeah, I'll keep doing what I need to do, because that's just the way that I am.
I'm a bit like that, mate. Do you know, obviously, I've learned people are just different, right? So I used to say, and I still think this to some extent, loads of people are in jobs within companies. They're doing 5 days a week. And I used to, it sounds really bad and arrogant, but it's true. I'll relate it to you rather than me, right? So someone like yourself could do the job, and this is true, you could do the job of, I think, 3 or 4 people, easily. There'll be people in companies, not necessarily your company, that they do the bare fucking minimum, and they're in an office job, and they'll complain that they've got too much to do as well. And I'm like, do you realise how easy it is to do stuff? If you just do it, you'll probably get it, like, you'll spend an hour moaning about it or thinking about it. Just fucking do it. It'll take 5 minutes and you'll be surprised how quick and easy things are to do. Nothing's that difficult, really. People make things difficult, so then that's the difficult part of your job probably as well, dealing with people. What you actually have to do isn't that difficult.
No.
It's arranging and planning and people. That's where all the work comes in.
Yeah.
So it's the work ethic, and that's why I was joking, but that's the people with the work ethic tend to get given more work. And they don't mind either, they just do it.
No, I don't. And, it's... I jokingly say to some people that, believe it or not, I'm only 30 years old. I just look 60, I'm the
other way around. I'm 60 and look 30.
But it's what it is. From the day I walked into my sales job, it's a way that I've always worked. Well, even before I was in sales, my old jobs, there was only one job that I could say that I worked, and it was purely just, I started at 8 o'clock in the morning and I finished at 4:30 in the afternoon. And that was just as a general labourer, but you couldn't do anything else.
Yeah, clock on, clock off.
It was just a case of, you just started your job, you finished your job, you went home, and you just started the next day.
Happy days, no responsibility. Go out,
exactly.
do nothing. So BEWI, is it BEWI?
Yes.
So I've up until right now, I call it BEWI, and I bet a lot of people do as well. So it's BEWI, BEWI.
Yeah.
And what country is it? Germany?
No, BEWI is actually Scandinavian.
Scandinavian.
Yeah. So if I give you just a very brief history, Jackon were Norwegian and German. So they started in Norway.
That's where I've had Germany.
And then in the mid-80s, they bought a business in Germany and then developed the XPS side of the business, so extruded polystyrene. And that's eventually where Jackaboard came from. So they were always run as two businesses, Jackon AS and Jackon GmbH. And Tile Backer in the UK, which was run by Colin Hyam at the time, was the exclusive distributor for Jackaboard. And then they Jackon as a company wanted the other products to be sold in the UK. But how do you do it if you're calling yourself Tile Backer? You can't exactly go to a building contractor as Tile Backer trying to sell under slab insulation or ICF building blocks. So the process started of buying, calling out, and calling ourselves Jackon UK. And then BEWI came in 2022, late 22, but the deal officially went through in July 23.
So, what? Jackon UK?
Yep.
Was there a Jackon UK?
Yes.
When was that created?
That probably officially would have been just as I started, or just before I started in the business, so 2017.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that young.
Yeah, previous to that, it was Tile Backer Limited. And Colin had the business at that point for, I think, maybe 7 or 8 years as Tile Backer.
Wow. So they just bought his distribution business, even though they were Jackon and he was distributing Jackon products.
Yeah.
They bought his distribution business off him.
Yeah, basically.
And renamed it.
Yeah.
And, well, I didn't know that.
That then enabled us to sell the other products.
Yeah. I didn't know that's how I didn't know that's how young Jackon UK were. Yeah.
And
then, so where does BEWI come in?
So BEWI bought the business, or acquired the business, back in it started in 2022, but the deal was finalised, I believe, in July 23. That's when we fully integrated into being called BEWI.
So Jackon International was purchased by BEWI.
Yeah.
So does Jackon as a name even exist anymore?
It does in some countries. Like Germany, for argument's sake, at the minute they're still called Jackon by BEWI. I think in Finland they're still called Jackon by BEWI. I'm not too sure of the intricate detail of all the countries, but that's the general theme. But in the UK, we are actually BEWI UK, because BEWI also purchased a company called Jablite, which sold EPS insulation. And BEWI UK bought them. They bought us as well, so we've actually integrated as BEWI UK.
Right. So what, just for people listening, when it was Jackon, what were the products?
Yes.
So the
products are, the products from Jackon UK, if you like, would have been the Jackaboard brand, which all the tiling people will know of. You then had Jackadoor, which is the XPS. That's the purple bit in the middle, uncoated. It's just purple XPS insulation. Thermomure, which is the ICF. So that's like the I call it the polystyrene Lego blocks, where you pour the concrete in between. And build houses or build structures with. And then the Jackadoor Atlas, which is an XPS raft foundation system. So they would fundamentally be the four products.
What's a raft foundation system?
So instead of building trench foundations that you would normally build for building a house, so you build trenches, put your foundations in, and then build your brick off it, or whatever your structure is going to be. Basically, a raft foundation is you just take a piece of ground, level it out, and this is being very basic about it. Level it out, hardcore, compact it, and then just place this insulated raft on the ground, and then pour concrete in it, and you've got an insulated raft foundation, and then you build your structure off it.
Bloody hell! Sounds wrong.
It does sound wrong.
What do builders think about that? I bet you show that to a builder and they're like, no, fucking, I put footings in and that's that.
It's surprising, actually. There's a lot more people using it now.
Really?
Yeah. It's a bit like when we first introduced the ICS system into the UK. The first thing people said was, oh, that's rubbish, that stuff. I saw it in Grand Designs and it failed. It wasn't ours that you saw in Grand Designs, it was somebody else. And B, there's a certain way of working when you're doing these things, you know. And it's starting to take off big style because it's so easy.
I'll look it up because that's it. From how you've just explained it, I'll be like, what? That's what I did for my patio.
The one thing I would say that if from a raft foundation, it really needs to be probably at minimum a house. You wouldn't want to do it just for a patio area or something like that. The same with if you were building an extension on your house, depending on the size, you wouldn't necessarily want it to be ICF because you have to have access for either a boom pump for the concrete or a line pump for the concrete. So there's lots of other factors to take into consideration as well. But the system is good. It's a great system.
I'll look it up, mate. I love anything that's a little bit different. I didn't mean it must be wrong because it sounds wrong. It sounds wrong compared to the traditional way of doing it.
Well,
obviously it's not wrong.
No, I mean, 20 years ago, if somebody had said to you, you could basically build a house out of polystyrene, you'd be laughing at them. But fundamentally, that's almost what you're doing. You're putting a raft foundation down and then building it with polystyrene blocks. Yes, you're adding concrete in, etc. But, you just think, James, how easy could it be?
Yeah. How many houses are being built like that in the UK?
Well, there's not just us. There's a few companies in the market doing it. But, we started off really focusing on the self-build market, but now we're picking up sites across the country. Some of the more discerning regional developers that are maybe doing 10 to 20 houses a year, we're picking up some of them. We've got a site, or we had a site down in the south that I think it had, I'm going to say it was about 200. It might even have been double that. houses.
And what are they
I think
saving?
most of that was. Well, they maybe don't save necessarily on the product like for like, but where you do save is time.
Yeah. So they're not
Big
digging
saving on
footings.
time.
Yeah.
And then the long term is that the homeowner, if you like, is saving a lot on energy costs.
Yeah.
Because you've got an insulated home that is well insulated. There's a lot of soundproofing associated with it as well, so you're saving a lot on energy as well. So it's got a lot of USPs to it.
Cool. So your job for people that a lot of the tiling world will know your name, I would imagine, or they'll know your company name at the very least. But
Yes.
I think your name personally, probably known by a lot of people. What if you explain to people? So a tiler knows you as Mike, who's they probably think you're a rep for BEWI or Jackon.
Yeah.
What do you actually do? What does it entail?
So if I'm talking, well, on a day-to-day basis, I would deal with tilers, Mr. and Mrs. Smith that have maybe got issues with the product or don't quite understand the product. So I would be giving them, I suppose, help on how to use the product or where to use it. So I do talk to a lot of tilers and general Joe public types on the use of the product, why you would use it, what its USPs are. So that's one side of it. The next side would be talking to buyers. People like yourself used to be, talking to buyers about taking our product into stock and what are the benefits of it against some of our competitors, etc. And then over and above that, it's running the team and it's reporting.
Bullshit.
So, and a lot of driving. I do a lot of driving.
So you said you started in Bristol.
That when I started with Jackaboard or Jackon UK.
Why Bristol? Why were you in Bristol? Were you there?
I started in Bristol. That was where my area started. I live in Middlesbrough, so my area was basically Bristol North. So I was the northern sales manager, if you like.
I thought you meant like the north of Bristol.
No.
Anything north of Bristol.
Anything north of Bristol.
Wow.
Was my
so you were
area
in.
At the time.
You lived in Scotland.
Yes.
Is that where you live now?
No, I from a very young age, I've travelled a lot up until, I'm saying a very young age, up until I was about 7. I lived in Scotland, England, Hong Kong, and back to Scotland again. My dad was in the RAF, so we travelled a lot.
Cool.
To different RAF bases throughout the UK, as well as going abroad. And then I settled in a place just south of Glasgow and stayed there up until I got married. We then moved 3 miles down the road to a different village, and then in '98 I moved down to Middlesbrough, and that was because I worked for Genesis, and this is going to sound, if the guys from Genesis hear this, it might make them chuckle, but the guy who owns Genesis, or owned Genesis, Aidan, lovely guy, got on really well with him, but he was one of these guys who'd had a degree in psychology. And he said to me one day, he'd given me a couple of promotions along the way, and he said one of the promotions was conditional that I move to nearer the manufacturing or the warehouse in Stokesley. And I think I'd worked at it for about a year, and we were sitting in a meeting, and he said to me one day, he says, Mike, I think it's time to make a decision. I'm not saying that if you don't move, you don't have a job, but those people who haven't moved are no longer with the company. So that was where I thought, right, okay, I need to make a decision here. Do I move or do I not? Spoke over with Linda, my wife, put the house up for sale in the October, and we were in here in Middlesbrough on the 1st of December.
Is that where you are now?
That's where we are now, yeah.
Where's Jackon HQ or BEWI HQ now?
where I work from is basically it's Wigan.
Well, not that close then.
I'm probably in Wigan maybe once a week.
Yeah.
Or maybe once every 10 days, something like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Travelling around.
Yeah. Except for today, because I'm at home.
Nice. So, growing up,
Yep.
You kind of told me that you travelled around a bit. Where did you actually live in the first place?
I was born in Perth.
Uh-huh.
That's where I was born. Probably there. I couldn't even tell you how long we were there. We then moved south. We lived in places like, I can't tell you the order because I can't remember, but certain places like Fakenham, Bryce Norton. There was another place, I can't remember where that was. And then we moved over we were in Hong Kong for 3.5 years-ish.
When? What years?
Long before you were born.
Oh, really? I'm older than you think. Told you. I look young.
Well, I came back in 1970. We were there for about 3.5 years. So what's that? 66-ish.
Yeah. So it was full on British colony then. Yeah.
Very much so. I have very little recollection of it. I have some, and I'm not going to do it, but I can still count to 10 in Cantonese.
Nice.
But I'm not going to do it because Scottish and Cantonese don't quite go well. And yeah, so moved back to Perth in about 1970. Was there for just under a year, and then my dad worked for a newspaper or got a job with a newspaper in Glasgow. So we moved to a little place called Lark Hall, which is just south of Glasgow, and was there right up until, as I say, we got married and moved 3 miles down the road.
So you only child?
With 2 sisters. So I'm in the middle of 2 sisters.
Right. What was that like?
Well, growing up, hand-me-downs was quite difficult for me, as you can probably well imagine. I
don't know. I've seen you wearing some questionable stuff. Doesn't surprise me.
So, yeah, I had 2 sisters, one 2 years older and one 2 years younger. So we were a typical, I suppose, working class family. Growing up, we weren't poor by any stretch of the imagination when you consider what being poor is. But we didn't have a lot, certainly nowhere near what some folks have got today, and now I'm beginning to sound old, but, you had to work for what you got when I was younger. Yeah. As opposed to just expecting to have it.
Yeah. So you were in Lark Hall.
Yeah.
So we're talking like the 80s when you were like leaving school.
Yes, I left school in 81.
Yeah. So what did you do? Straight from school?
Straight from school, Did
you know what you wanted to do?
I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a PE teacher. That's what I wanted to do. I applied to 2 universities. I was given conditional acceptances by both. One was Jordan Hill in Glasgow, and the other one was Neen College, I think, or Neen University, you call it, in Northampton. So I was given conditional acceptances by both, but I failed my exams because I was a thicko. That's put it mildly.
I doubt that. So where did you do your exams? Was that school or college?
At school. No, I did them at school.
So what exams are we talking about? Because I know Scotland's a bit different with ages. What age were you?
Yeah, at that time, it would have been, I'd already done what I would have called O grades at that time. I think call them GCSEs now.
Yeah.
And highers.
Yeah.
So I did go to higher level, but I needed 3 highers, 2 O grades.
As high as like A levels?
Yes, yeah.
So why do you think you didn't get it?
Because I just didn't apply myself, if I'm being honest.
Really?
There were so many other things going on. I broke my leg playing football, and it was a severe break, and I mucked about for probably the best part. I hope my mum and dad never hear this. Well, my dad won't, because sadly he died, but I hope my mum never hears this. But I just basically mucked about for the best part of a year. use that as an excuse.
That's what 17-year-olds do, isn't it?
Yeah.
I always
so
GCSEs and exams at that age, I just don't get it.
No.
I don't see the point.
No.
What you're proving, unless you're going to be an academic all your life, you're kind of proving that you're able to study. That's it, and remember stuff.
Yeah.
But like you said, you're thicker. I doubt it. I highly doubt it, because a 16 or 17-year-old, they're not thick, and they've probably got skills in other areas that they're not allowed to explore because school.
Yeah.
Boring.
Yeah.
And the ones that do well, they've either got good memories or they're very academic.
Yeah.
And it's
I've neither of the two.
Well, and then you lumped into the thicko crowd, and you're like, oh yeah, he doesn't do well on his exams, but not really. He just didn't do well with exams. He could probably do well with something else.
Yeah,
but
I mean, to be fair, Shane, I've never been good at exams, and my son's the same. I just don't like them. I don't see the point of them. Even doing training courses, when I was at Johnson's, and they'd come to the end of the week and you had to do certain things, and I'm like, I've never been good at that sort of thing. I'm more a one-to-one or a presentation type. Don't ask me to sit and write out exam questions or answers and stuff like that.
Just a good memory. That's it. People with good memories do well at exams.
Yeah.
Obviously, you'll have people who are like really into history or whatever.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I remember that I never. Complicated story with me. I went to that many different schools. I didn't actually do GCSE courses because I started GCSEs. Then I moved to Ireland, who don't do GCSEs.
Yeah.
They just let me do whatever I wanted because it was like too far gone, and they were like, you can't do Irish.
Yeah.
You can't do maths like we do maths because we don't use calculators. There's no way you can catch up. Do whatever the fuck you want, basically.
Yeah.
But then we came back. We left Ireland and come back to the UK, and then I was like the last 7 months of the year doing GCSEs again. But I remember the one subject, and I'm still into this to this day, for whatever reason, I liked history.
Right. Okay.
Never mattered who the teacher was either. I was always into it. And that's the only exam I remember doing where I wasn't trying to access my memory to answer a question. I just knew it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And obviously, you get those kids. They're fucking very clever, very academic at whatever they're into.
Yeah.
But yeah, most kids are just trying to remember stuff, and they're like, you need to revise, and what that means is you need to memorize some shit. And I'd rather, like, my kids aren't old enough yet, but I try and explain to the eldest, he's 9. Get into it. So when you're at school, whatever you're doing on that particular lesson, and he'll say it's boring. I'm like, I know, but try and concentrate on just whatever you're doing in that lesson. Really listen to what the teacher's saying and really read what's in front of you, because you won't have to remember it later on. You'll know it. You'll just know it.
Yeah.
You'll be into it. And obviously you won't be into everything, but I'm trying to teach him to learn that way, because later on you don't want to be trying to remember answers. Sure. And then they'll say, oh, look at all these brilliant GCSE results. And like, what have you done? Taught them all some answers and they've remembered them.
Yeah.
That's basically what's happened. So, school's bullshit. GCSEs and A-levels mean nothing to me. I do not care. Don't give a shit. Don't care what results you got. Not bothered.
No.
It means nothing.
I think one of the things that when I started in sales, and I remember talking to somebody, a university graduate that had got a job in sales. I can't even remember what it was they were selling, and they actually looked at me and said, do you actually enjoy what you're doing? And I said, well, yeah, I do. And he was like, well, I don't see the point in it. He was a university graduate, but that company wanted that type. And you sort of think, well, if you're going to go to university, you're going to university for a plan, aren't you?
Yeah.
Of what you want to do. He didn't want to do sales, but it was the only job he could get. And it's the same with, okay, maybe I shouldn't discourage people that would be listening to this to say, don't worry about your exams, because...
No, don't worry about your exams. Don't matter. I'll say it doesn't matter. Unless you want to be a doctor or something, but you're probably clever if you want to be a doctor. You're probably like academic.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't help me any, put it that way.
Doesn't matter, mate. I've repeated this before. When I went to John Moores University in Liverpool,
right,
and I was just doing anything for work. If there was like temping here, there, and everywhere, and one of the jobs was to conduct a survey of graduates, ex-graduates, to see what they're doing now. It was for like a government survey. What course did you do? What are you doing now? What salary do you get? Do you enjoy it? Is it related to your course? And they were trying to put some statistics together for whoever. And honestly, the only people who did a job that was related to what they did at university were doctors and teachers.
Yeah.
That is it. Maybe there's others who do different things that I just didn't speak to, but they were the only two jobs that doctors, nurses and teachers, that was it. Liverpool's got a lot of medical students.
Yeah.
But they were the only ones. Everybody else was factory, shop, salesman. All right, Mike, you're a salesman now. They didn't have to tell you salary, but a lot of them did. What did you do at university? Oh, media studies.
Yeah.
I reckon 80% of the people I spoke to didn't do a job that was related to what they did at university.
Yeah, sure.
But I bet you the job that they did do required them to have a degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? I don't know why. I suppose it proves you are willing to study or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's always been one of those things that I always thought it was. In some jobs when they're specifically asking for argument's sake, when I was growing up, you have to have 3 hires and 2 low grades or whatever. And you're like, well, why? I think a lot of that was to try and sort the wheat out the chaff, so that what you've actually got is you're not interviewing 140 numbnuts.
But it's wrong, isn't it? So
it is, of course it is. Yeah.
My first job was in engineering. So I was an apprentice engineer. If they probably did actually, because you did have to have certain GCSEs to apply for that job, but they're missing out on someone who might be a fucking genius, technically minded, but he didn't get a GCSEs because he's not got a very good memory, and he's probably a window cleaner now because he never had the opportunities. So it's wrong. They're missing out. I understand it though, because if you did it my way, you would end up talking to a load of numbnuts. But you would catch some good ones as well. You need to give people opportunities.
Yeah.
So you didn't get the grades.
No.
So you couldn't be a PE teacher.
PE teacher, no.
So what did you do?
I went and worked on a building site as a general labourer for, I'm trying to remember how long it was. I'm going to say it was 2 years. It might have been just under 2 years. To be fair, Shane, at the time, the salary was fantastic. It really was. For what I was doing at that time. So you're talking 1981. It doesn't sound a lot now, but then I was on 200 quid a week, so £1,000 a month for general labouring.
Nice.
But then the company went into liquidation, administration, whatever you call it, so they were no more. So we actually had no job. So I was unemployed for, I'm going to say 2 or 3 weeks. And then I got a job in a local builders merchants on what they called the YTS scheme. So I went from 200 quid a week to 36. But again, I enjoyed that job. It was a good little job to have, a little family-run business in Larkhall. Great little company, sadly not there anymore. But I started off just basically customers coming in. I need some wood, I need some cement, whatever, and just giving them it. Well, not selling it to them, whatever, taking the money. And then I was asked if I wanted to be a kitchen designer within the same business. So you might recall a kitchen company called Schreiber. They were a brand. They had Schreiber. We at Shire Glass were an exclusive Schreiber showroom. So I was asked if I wanted to become a kitchen designer. So I started planning and selling kitchens as well. And that was my first foray into actual real sales, if you like. And then that went a bit pear-shaped, so I became the delivery driver. Still with the same company. And then I got a guy joined us who came from Johnson's Tiles. And I said to him, any jobs going? And he says, well, actually, the guy who was our merchandiser is getting my job, so his position's free. So he got me an interview. And I remember my boss at the time telling me that it got down to two of us. I can't remember the other guy's name. And he said, the only reason you got it, and again, this is going to sound so patronising, but the only reason you got it was you said, you're still young enough to be trained in the Johnson way of working.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't come in with the attitude of, I can do this, I can do that. And that was the reason I got the job. So I was 25 at the time. So I've been in the industry now, what's that? 35 years.
Yeah, so Johnson's would have been in Stoke.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So how did that work? Were you just covering an area?
Yeah, I started off as merchandiser for the northwest, Cumbria and Scotland. And then I took over, within about 6 months, I took over the area of west of Scotland for sales.
Yeah.
And then I took over the East Coast because the guy left. So basically I started off, when I took on the sales rep job, if you like, it was Cumbria and west of Scotland, and then the whole of Scotland. And that was me until 93 when I joined Genesis.
Right, so you got a load of tile knowledge by working at Johnson's.
Yep.
Where were Genesis based?
Genesis were based in Middlesbrough, but then they moved to Stokesley, so it's only 6 miles.
Yeah.
But in the northeast, yeah.
So tell us about Genesis for people listening.
So I joined Genesis from Johnson's as area sales manager for basically the north of England and Scotland.
What were they doing at the time? What products were they doing?
So it was all trims, primarily trims, plastic trims and tools. The tools range was pretty basic at the time, but it was enough to get us into some places. And they had a very limited range of trim. They had a very extensive range of PVC trim, but a limited range of metal trim. And over the years, they developed more metal trim, less PVC, and then other products such as bath trims, movement joints, etc. And then the range became pretty vast, really. The tools range became good. And since I left, they've obviously developed this whole the BEWI range of tools, which you've probably seen, which is a completely different, taking them into different markets that they wouldn't have had before. So my role initially then would be to, basically Aidan said to me, there's a map of Scotland and the north of England, you know where it is, just go and sell. So that's what I did. So again, this is going to sound very arrogant, but at the time, from 93 through to, I would say 2014 when I left, most people would have known me as Genesis, and I would have been the face of Genesis, if you like. Everybody knew me.
So what does that entail? So you started working at Genesis, so just for people listening who might be not be in sales, when he said to you, there's your area, and it's give you some freedom to go and do whatever you do. Yeah. What do you do to get sales?
Yeah, so basically it would be a case of just visiting anybody and everybody that was, I would say, tile-centric, because that was the bulk of our business, and get them to try and buy our products. So it would have started primarily with distribution customers or multiple retailers, and basically selling the product to them. We did do in those days, things that we call a stock cleanse. So our biggest competitor would have been Homelux. So if Homelux was in a distributor, we would take them out and basically put our product in. So if Homelux had, I'll use this as an example, 100 trims in a distributor, we would take it out and put in 200 trims of ours. to take them out of the market or out of that particular customer.
Explain that
Yeah.
scenario.
So, the idea really was, if you took the competitor out, it meant that customer wouldn't buy from the competitor. They would just buy your products.
How did you take them out?
You
Explain the process.
So the process would be, I'm going by memory here now, but basically the process would have been, if they had 100 trims of Homelux, say, and I'm using that as a brand, then let's just say, for argument's sake, at the time the Homelux product was a £5 and ours was £2.50, then we would take out the £500 worth at cost of Homelux and put in £500 worth of Genesis. So that would be, instead of 100, it would be 200 trims. Yeah. So the idea then was, they were so well stocked up with trim, they didn't want anybody else's. They didn't want to buy anymore, so they would sell ours. They would have double the amount to sell, and if they sold at Homelux prices, they would make a lot more money on it, and then reinvest more and buy more stock. That was the idea.
So it's like an entry fee.
Yeah, but customers got quite cute to it, because they knew that if we did that, Homelux would do the same. And Homelux was still the predominant brand. So what some customers used to do was, they would do a stock cleanse, or we would do a stock cleanse for them. Homelux would go back in and say, well, you do a stock cleanse for me. So they would end up just never paying for stock for the best part of 6 months, because they just kept on getting stock clenses.
Yeah, aggressive sales.
You know, that's what
people
it was.
Always take advantage, mate.
Of
you're
course
being too aggressive. And you're being a little bit underhand to do that to Homelux. I'm not a fan of Homelux. Don't care. QEP no, aren't they? Oh, the QEP.
Yeah. But they did it to us first. To be honest.
It doesn't matter who did it. I don't care. I'm just saying that there's an underhand thing going on with the salespeople. Why wouldn't the company who's doing it do something just as bad? They would, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
I don't like things like that, to be honest with you. I'm more...
No, but as a customer, why wouldn't you take advantage of it? You know, you've got an opportunity to clear stock that maybe isn't moving as well. You know, so
if it was like, if it was a new supplier, and part of the deal of being a new supplier was to get rid of some old stock for you, that's fair enough. But if it's an aggressive entry fee from the new sales team, whatever. I don't like it. I don't like the sound of it. Does that still go on?
I don't think so. You know, I mean, we even at Jackon, or BEWI, we get asked, will we do stock cleanses? And the answer is a categoric no. You know, it's just, you know, I think it's had its day. And apart from that, you know, whenever Genesis moved from Middlesbrough to Stokesley, the amount of competitors' product that we had to try and shift was unbelievable. I think we had as much of their product as we did of our own at the time, you know. And you know, you can shift it to places like Nigeria, where they don't, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but they don't care what the brand is. They just want product, and they'll take it as cheaply as possible, you know. And that's what you ended up doing. So it was part and parcel of getting business in the day. It's the way that it worked. You know, Telluride would have done, and they're also owned by QEP, but they would have done the same as well. You know, it was just the way that trim companies worked in the day. But as the business grew and developed, and our methods changed and developed. So then our methods of sales, I suppose, would have changed. We became a bit more professional about the way we were doing things. The company changed. Certainly when we moved to Stokesley, it was, we also acknowledged at the time that Genesis had become, I dare say they became a bit of a Homelux, in that they became the brand leader. So they were the ones that everybody targeted. So we had to reassess how we went to market. So we changed our whole pricing policy on getting to distributors, basically saying to distributors, you want to be a distributor of the product, you have to stock it. It's not a case of we're not going to be the distributor for you. that's how we developed the business of being the distributor, if you like. So we had to change our policy, and that's what we did. And we actually, grew exponentially over the next couple of years because of it. So yeah, the company did very, very well. I subsequently left. During my time, I was given a couple of promotions, and then I was promoted to sales director in 2007, and that enabled me to, or part of my responsibility was to take on the export markets as well. So I started doing a lot of traveling worldwide. And then in 2014, due to circumstances, I'm not going to go into it on here. I'll talk to you personally about it, but due to various circumstances, I left the company and I joined QEP, the company that some people love and some people hate. And I joined them. That lasted a year, and then I was made redundant. And I was redundant for 15 months. Yeah, 15 months. And then I went back to Genesis because obviously I needed a job. This is going to sound disrespectful to Genesis. It's not. I don't mean it that way. But I needed a job. They had an opportunity, and I joined them on the flooring side of the business. So I was basically flooring sales to distributors, contractors, etc., but also on-site measuring stairs, and then giving the orders to the local distributors. And then in 2018, I joined Jackon.
So for all of that, what training were you given? Did you ever? Was it all literally? Because I think from what you've told me, everything you know has been learned from. You fell into a job in the first place, you didn't particularly want to do it, but then everything from there is learned on the job experience. You've never actually gone to school to learn anything extra.
No. Yeah. I've never done. The only training course that I did would have been an internal training course at Johnson's Tiles at the time.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I've never had any training whatsoever.
Yeah. So you found what you needed. So you proved that you didn't like exams. You don't really learn that. I don't think many people do, but you didn't learn it. And without even trying, you found what suited you, and actually done really well out of it. So that's.
I'd like to think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. And to be fair,
if people don't get the opportunities,
the companies have done very well out of it as well.
Oh yeah. That was your skill.
Yeah.
That you didn't need anyone. You didn't need a fucking exam to tell you that that's what you're good at.
No.
And that's what I mean. People aren't. I suppose you were lucky in a way, but it's a little bit of luck. But obviously, you don't just drop on. You work towards it. You get to know people.
Yes.
You apply for jobs, and you make your own luck in that sense. But some people don't even get that little bit of luck.
No.
So that's what I was saying. That they're told that they're thick.
Yeah.
You can't go to college. You're not clever enough. You need to go and fucking work in a coal mine or whatever. I don't know. Just made that up.
I mean, before I started at Johnson's, I still remember the figure. I applied for 264 sales jobs.
Really? Yeah.
Well, I got 80 responses.
Wow.
And out of those 80 responses, I got 3 interviews. And out of those 3 interviews, I didn't get any of the jobs. It was actually because it was somebody that I knew.
Yeah.
That had come to work for us. So that
usually the way,
a lot of the cases it is about people that you know, without a shadow of a doubt. But I also remember, this will make you laugh, I can't remember what you call these things, but again, I'm hopeless at them. You know these things where you have to fill in, it's a bit like a Myers-Briggs type thing where you have to fill in, a multiple choice of you are excellent,
personality type.
Good. Yeah, one of these things. I remember filling this in because one of my friends had said, "Oh, you'd be great as an insurance salesman, but you need to do this." So I went and did this test, and I'll never forget it. The guy came down afterwards and he says, "I don't know how you're making it in sales." He says, "Based on that, you should be a janitor."
Yeah, bullshit. It's all bullshit,
you
mate.
know. So
It's
I
bullshit.
thought, I'll never do anything like that again. You know.
So my mechanic, right? I think I've talked about him before, and I didn't know this was a thing, but this school should do this more often. So he'll say he was naughty at school, so they kicked him out when he was young, but he probably was ADHD or something, because he's actually really intelligent.
Yeah.
And he ended up, he was literally kicked out of school. I think he was 14 or something. But they didn't just leave him to it. They sent him, I don't know what it was. There must have been something going on at the time that they sent him not to work, but to learn in work environments. Like, I suppose it's like an apprenticeship, but at 14. He knows fucking everything there is to know about a car. Everything. Yeah. He's like a complete wizard with anything. Van, truck, car, bike, fucking anything. But he'll say it's because I've been doing it since I was 13 or 14. By the time I was old enough to work, I knew everything there was to know about a car.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think schools should do that more, not just for kids who are naughty in inverted commas, because they're not naughty, they're just not capable of thriving in school environment. It's not being naughty.
Yeah,
Some of them will be naughty, obviously, but not all of them. So yeah, I think schools should do that more often. And you've just proved, you explained that you didn't like exams, and then you explained how you become a sales director eventually through no training, no exams,
none whatsoever.
So
none whatsoever.
Yeah, they're the best. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that really makes me laugh, and it doesn't happen so much at BEWI here, well, certainly with the folks I work with at Wigan, but when I was at Genesis, I used to get a lot of the staff would send me emails or letters that they were waiting to go out and ask me to proofread them and to make sure that they were grammatically correct, which I always found bizarre that a Scotsman reading English and teaching the English how to write English.
Yeah.
It
might have been a confidence thing though, that you were more confident in saying, yeah, fuck it, send it. Don't matter what.
Well, probably.
Don't say that to that guy, because it's an experience thing, isn't it? Like, don't put that word to him, because he'll go funny with you. But whatever. But yeah. Interesting.
But I think one of the things that I've always done in my career is I'm not your typical bulldog salesman. Yeah. I've always been one of these guys. I'd like to think I'm relatively diplomatic about the way that I go about things.
Yeah.
Yes, I can be hard when I need to be, but I can still be diplomatic and being hard.
So I can talk about that, because obviously I know you as a salesman, because I was the opposite. I was the buyer.
Yes, I remember.
So I've always said the same thing about salesmen. That there's a way to be a salesman. And it's what I think is wrong, because the type of salesman I don't like can be very successful, but in a different way.
Yeah.
So I prefer someone who's got, first of all, they just sound like they're all right, nice people. That's the most important thing. If they're all right and sound, I'll work with them no matter what. But it's usually someone who used to be a technical person or an ex-engineer or an ex-tradesman or so, and they just so happen to be good at sales as well, or they can do the sales side of it. They are usually the type of salesman that I used to get on with as a buyer. It was a bit different. It was a bit different by the time I bumped into you, because I remember speaking to you one night. It was at the awards, wasn't it?
It was at the TTA,
And you said, so this haunts me to this day, right? So I must have done it to more than one person. And we were talking about, I don't know, I just started doing what I do now, and you were saying it's difficult, innit? And I'm like, yeah, it's fucking, the amount of rejection you get is insane. And then you explained to me that I did that to you. That, I can't remember the exact details now, but the gist of it was that we had a conversation, and I was interested, because I was given the task to make the trade range like a broader range, because I always used to bang on at the time, so I was at Tile Giant, and I was a big fan of Pro Tiler tools, and this is like a few years ago now. I could see what they were doing, and I was like, that's a good idea. I like what they're doing. We need to do something similar. So I convinced my bosses to let me speak to So at the time, Tile Giant was we're exclusive with this adhesive supplier, we're exclusive with this backer board supplier, like they had one thing of everything and they were exclusively supplied, and that was a deal. But I was like, no, we need to broaden the horizons a little bit and stock a few more things and like give the tradesmen more option. So they let me speak to people like you. But I think what happened was, so when that started, my boss might have been Colin, maybe, and he would have been way more open to more or less anything to be like, do what you want. You've seen your buyer, you fucking do it. I'll just sign it off, whatever. If he didn't like it, he wouldn't. But then by the time I was speaking to you, and it wasn't just you I was speaking to, and this is, so I would have probably told you at the time I'm speaking to other competitors of yours as well.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
So that was something I used to be, what's the word? Praised.
You would have been open about it.
Yeah. So I used to literally say to people, so I might be speaking to a salesman for however long, but say to him, no, the answer is no, sorry, and these are the reasons. And people were like, that's fine, thanks for saying no. So that was a big thing for me, always be open, and I always was, even if the answer wasn't a good one. So when you said to me, no, you never said anything to me, you ignored me for months, I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I was that surprised that you said it to me. I thought it mustn't be me. But at that time, I believe it probably was me, but at that time, it was such a weird time for me at that company because the new management were in, and it was, I won't mention names now because I'm going to slag people off. They were so shit, to put it bluntly, and they were being so like cruel to me. If I use me as an example, so I didn't realise at the time I was having a fucking horrendous time working there for a year, for 18 months. They were trying to get rid of me, like manage me out of the business, rather than just saying to me, or just getting rid of me, like straight up, you're gone, whatever, because they probably couldn't. So they were doing things like stripping away responsibility. They would go off and like I'll make some things up now, but they would go off and have a meeting with, say, Sigma or whatever. This did happen actually, and I've spoken to the guy since. And they would come back, or they'd send me an email that they weren't even in the fucking office. They went missing for months on end. And then I'd get a phone call from like someone like Sigma saying, like, yeah, we're going to put stuff in 30 of your stores next week. I'm like, what? So bear in mind, I'm a senior buyer. Like, I was supposed to be arranged, and I was the only one. I was supposed to be arranged, but what they've done is gradually stripped away responsibility. Right. So I think around about that time, I was in a fucking mess because they did a thing with QEP at the time. So my boss came in, and we were dealing with Tile Easy at the time. Yeah. So I would have they were like, right, Tile Easy are out, QEP are in, done. Get it done. I'm like, do you realise that how odd that fucking is? There's 100 stores at the time with a shitload of Tile Easy stuff in there and displays and this, that, and the other, and you're now just telling me, yeah, we're just swapping it all for QEP. Is that I was saving a lot of money? Is it like £1 million saving or something? Like, not really. We're just doing it. And I'm like, why? Like, what's fucking point? So then and it was like things like that I was dealing with. So they made that decision, and I had to deal with it. So and the stores would hate me because I'm like, you're getting a new stand, and this is because I just had to do my job.
Yeah, sure.
So I think the thing with you might have been. So I think at the time I said maybe I did get back to you, or I was supposed to. I
could show you the emails.
Yeah, and it was like, no, sorry, I didn't. Maybe I was supposed to get back to you, or my boss might have said something like, "Yeah, we're not dealing with, we're not doing that." So because they would literally do things like, "Yeah, we've had a meeting with them already. Don't worry about it." There's no way I would have ignored you. I wouldn't.
No.
Even then, when I was really pissed off being there, like I wouldn't be like that. So even to this day, I think, why did I do that? Well, I wonder why I did that. I don't know. Sure. I honestly don't know. I wouldn't do that. But I obviously did.
Well, I trust you, but at the same time, I didn't want you to think that, you asked me a question. I'm one of these guys. You ask me a question, I'll tell you. But I'll tell you in a diplomatic way. I didn't, as you know, go off on one about it.
It obviously happened, and it was like, right, and I probably did it. And thinking back, so maybe I did it to others as well. And I just presumed that I wouldn't. But maybe I did. But just because I was in such a mess at the time with that job, it was a fucking nightmare, to be honest with you.
Yeah, sure.
Shit show.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that's the thing. Sometimes you have to be aware that not everybody's in the same position that you're in, that there are things going on, and you have to really think about what you're doing, and not take it personally. That's the other thing.
Yeah, that's the people thing I told you about. You can't dealing with people is so fucking difficult.
Yeah,
so everyone's different. Everyone's got some kind of issue going on.
Yeah,
some people are funny fuckers, some people aren't, and that's what I mean. As long as the person's sound, that's like great for me, right?
Yes.
And that's when they used to let me interview people that like someone who might come and work in my team. I don't really care what they've done before. They were never like highly paid jobs. Just wanted them to be sound.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Is a nice person. She's a nice person. Great. They're not brain dead. They're nice people.
No.
Happy days.
Yeah.
Let's train them up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you ended up at Jackon.
Yes.
And that's basically where you are now.
That's where I've been since 2018. Yeah. So obviously going from being an owner managed business under Colin Hyam to being part of a corporate organisation. There are benefits to both, without a shadow of a doubt. There are also negatives to both. I think it's fair to say that when you're part of an owner managed business, if you want to do something, you do it. Whereas when you're part of a corporate, you have to go through a few loopholes, or you have to skip through a few hoops to get things done at times.
So when I was at Bentley, so I used to work at Bentley, we went on a course. It was a negotiation course. It was really good actually. So it was like different styles of negotiation, and part of the course was obviously Bentley's VW, so it's like a big corporation. Negotiation within the company. So they were training you to how to be good at negotiating with your colleagues. That's a corporation for you. You have to fucking negotiate to get things done. It's a nightmare.
Yeah. It's understanding the necessity to manage up, down, and sideways.
It's
which I thought at my age I'd be able to do, but it does get difficult at times.
Yeah, corporations they're a nightmare, mate. And I don't know why, to be honest, but they are, all of them.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I will be totally upfront and say that BEWI is, it's a massive corporation, and it has a lot of things that maybe you would say are wrong, but really, I think what they stand for, what they do is pretty good. They're very much into this. They look after their staff, very much into the whole sustainability, especially with polystyrene, the way that it is in the market and perceived in the market. They're very much into that. So they've got a lot of good things, I would say. But when you get down into the nitty gritty of corporation, it can be frustration at times. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. So the reason I know Jackon, and the reason a lot of people who are listening will know Jackon, is basically backer boards.
Yes.
That was my introduction to Jackon.
Yes.
So obviously there's other products and people can look them up, but for the sake of tilers will be listening. So for the sake of backer boards, can you give us like a simplified breakdown? What are they? Because some people will be listening and genuinely, and I don't mean this in a bad way, there's tilers out there, they're not quite sure. They know backer boards are backer boards and they need them. Yeah. But there's different ones that are used for different things, and there's a reason that they're made the way that. So can you give us a simplified breakdown of what is a
simplified breakdown then would be that, Jack board is an XPS, so it's an extruded polystyrene core with a polymer modified cement and glass fibre mesh on either side. And that basically enables you to use either floor or wall. The board itself is waterproof, so you really only need to, if you're going to be using it in a wet area, tank the joints and the vulnerable points where you fix it, because the board itself is waterproof. If you're, there are a lot of other companies doing similar boards. So there would be people like, and I will name them, Marmox, Wedi, PCS, that do XPS boards as well. All very good in what they do. And then you have some product coming in from, I'll say, the Far East, which fundamentally does the same job, but doesn't necessarily have all the necessary BBA accreditation and other types of accreditation that you need, certainly within the building industry. Then you have the other backer boards, which would be your cement based backer boards, people like Hardy, No More Ply. And these boards are generally water resistant, which means that if you're using them in a wet area, you should be tanking them because they're water resistant, which means that water will pass through into the substrate and damage the substrate. It doesn't damage the board because the board, as they quite rightly say, will last a lifetime, but it's the substrate you need to worry about. If the substrate gets damaged, the board's no good. Simple as that. And then the other board is the MGO boards, which again are water resistant rather than waterproof. The benefits of the cement boards or the MGO boards over the XPS is, in its raw form, they're much harder, so people think that they will accommodate better loads. But once the backer boards, the tile back, as in the XPS boards, are tiled, the load's irrelevant because you stand on it, it'll accept a load. If you're driving a forklift over it, it's different. But if you can get a forklift up into your bathroom, then you're doing a really good job. So, from that perspective, I'm going to say, of course, XPS is one of the better ones. And it's a lot lighter, easier to cut, no dust come off it, la-di-da-di-da.
Yeah.
So it's a little snapshot.
Yeah, so technically, so for people listening who haven't got a clue what even a board is, so it's basically you can put it on the floor underneath the tile.
Yes.
To give the tile a solid waterproof or water resistant base, and it'll make it flat and all the rest of it.
Yeah, you're given, depending on the thickness of the board that you use, if you're using a 6 or a 10 mil, basically what you're doing is you're just overlaying the floor to give the tiler a flat surface to tile to, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yours would be insulating and sound deadening somewhat.
It gives insulation properties, yes. Obviously, the thicker you've got, the better the insulation. So if you're using underfloor heating, for argument's sake, it goes on top of the board, not like some people have done where they put it underneath the board and then there's no heat comes through. So, it goes on top of the board. So ideal for electric underfloor heating. Soundproofing is one of those ambiguous areas because we don't have any set data as to what the soundproofing does. It meets minimum criteria, but it doesn't necessarily meet a criteria if you say you were building a block of flats, so you would need an additional soundproofing mat, if you like,
something that's been tested.
Yeah.
And then you will put it.
And then,
go on, sorry.
Sorry, and then if you're using it on the walls, it can be fixed to stud, it can be fixed directly to a flat surface, and if you're putting it onto an uneven surface, you can dot and dab, but it also needs to be mechanically fixed.
Yeah.
And there is detail associated with that. So for argument's sake, we would never recommend 6 mil on the wall unless you were putting it on top of A, plasterboard, B, plywood, or a solid structure.
Yeah. So do you get any, especially this year, government policy on new builds and things like that? Is that one of your big customers, new build properties?
It is. What we are finding is, certainly with the NHBC guidance now, we're getting a lot of inquiries with reference to either A, using the boards, or B, using a waterproof solution. A lot of people ask me who my biggest competitor is, and they expect me to say somebody like Wedi or Hardy or whoever, but my biggest competitor, believe it or not, is plasterboard.
Yeah.
If I could get 1% of the plasterboard market, I think BEWI would be exceptionally happy because 1% of the plasterboard market would double my turnover tomorrow easily.
Yeah.
You know, and plasterboard. And people say, well, why is it not as cheap as plasterboard? Well, one, go into B&Q for an example and look at the number of aisles that they've got in plasterboard, or one of the bays they've got in plasterboard, and how many bays do they have on other boards? And it's economies of scale. It's as simple as that. But use of plasterboard needs to be thought about, certainly in wet areas.
Yeah.
And that's why we're encouraging people to either use a backer board or to tank plasterboard.
Yeah. So
properly.
That's the policy that's coming in it, tanking.
Yes. Yeah.
I wonder why they didn't just go the whole hog and say, do it properly. Because you know what you're going to get. They're just going to do the fucking bare minimum.
Yeah. The issue that you've got is within the house building sector, the new house building sector, it is not generally the tiler or the bathroom fitter that is fitting the walls. It's the joiner, or it's the plasterer, or it's the dry liner, as we used to call them, who are fitting plasterboards. That's what they've always done. So that's the difficulty in that part. And of course, house builders being house builders, they want to buy as cheaply as they can, so that they're not having to compromise the profits that they make on selling the house. Buying our type of boards at the front end is more expensive. Mm-hmm. It will be with any backer board. But the long-term saving comes when you're not having to call out people during the first 10-year period to replace, repair, whatever. You won't have that if it's done right.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a bigger discussion. I've had that with multiple guests. That new home builds.
Yeah,
because
it's not just new home builds. To be fair, it's it's on anything that you would do. Mm-hmm. What is the old adage? Do it right, do it once.
Yeah.
A lot of people prefer to look at the price element and then worry about the other bit later.
It's a never-ending argument, that is, mate.
Of course it is.
And I think, unfortunately, that's an argument or something that happens that'll make, and it does make, a lot of products, they don't innovate. They do the opposite of innovate. They go backwards.
Yes.
What's the opposite of innovate? They go backwards, and there's loads of examples of it. And it's like it's the aggressive need for cheaper prices. Mm-hmm. So what people don't realise what they're doing, they're demanding cheaper prices. The manufacturers, they understand that people are demanding cheaper prices and their competitors are giving them cheaper prices, so they try to give you the cheaper prices as well. Mm-hmm. They're not just going to take a hit on the margin to give you a cheaper price. They're going to find ways of making the same thing cheaper. And you could say, oh, that's great because they're going to innovate then. No. Mm-hmm. They're going to find ways of making it cheaper, and 9 times out of 10 it makes it fucking worse.
The
innovation comes when someone's getting better than you are, not cheaper. Oh shit, they're better, we need to be as good as them. That's when you start getting innovation. And what you end up with, the companies with the biggest pockets survive, and then they've got a monopoly. When it all comes down to it, they've got a monopoly on whatever it may be. And they're never going to innovate then. Why would they? They'll keep telling you the same old shit to make money because they've got no fucking competition, barely. There might be one other company, and neither of them innovate then, and then you're trapped.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the things that we continually look at is our pricing. And, we've set a very strict pricing policy, and we won't deviate from that because we need to be able to innovate. And you can't innovate if you're selling it next to nothing.
Yeah.
So we're continually looking at ways of improving. And one of the things that I've put it on LinkedIn occasionally is, we're not just a tile backer board.
Yeah.
We are so much more than that. There are so many other products that we offer.
Yeah.
But people still just refer to us as a tile backer board.
Yeah. Well, it's the whole system now, isn't it? You've got everything.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Exactly. And that's what we're about. We are a system. So we are more than just a tile backer board. You know, we're continually looking at areas that we can improve, not just for ourselves, but for the market in general.
Break down the system for me. So break down the system and what all each product is, and then people can go and find your products.
Right, so basically, you know, the first and foremost, the one that everybody will know will be the construction board, the tile backer board, if you know.
And I presume that's your top selling thing.
It is, you know. But mixed in that, because a lot of it is dependent on size, you know, whether it be 6mm, 20mm, 50mm, and then also, you know, is it a 1200 by 600 or is it a 2.4 by 600? So there's varying sizes, but we also do things like shower boards or shower elements, as they call them. So we've got varying designs, varying sizes. So we do what we call point drains, which is your square drain, and it can either be offset or central. We do the linear drains, but we also do a system where there's a linear drain on its own, and then there's a wedge board that comes with it. So we do those systems. We do shower enclosures and seat kits, niches. There's a whole plethora of products available, and then add to that all the ancillaries, washers, tapes, screws.
Does anybody stock everything?
I wouldn't say anybody stocks everything. There are some companies that stock a good proportion or a good width of product. The depth is always the issue. I would never, for argument's sake, expect somebody to stock one of our spiral showers. You know, I've been with the company for 5-6 years almost. Well, 6 years it is. And I think I've sold 6 in those 6 years.
What's I would never
expect
shower?
Anybody to... it's basically, it looks like a snail. If you look at it from top down, it looks like a snail. So you basically walk in one end and walk round, and it's just curved boards, basically put into a base, and then you have a shower in it. And you have to tile it with mosaics because it's curved. So it's one of those products that the face of it isn't expensive, but then when you tell somebody there's 27 metres of mosaic tiling on it, it becomes expensive.
Wow, yeah. So it's a fancy. There's probably not many people who need one of them, mate. It's fucking very specific house and bathroom that needs one of them, isn't it?
The last one I sold, believe it or not, was to a guy who was building a glamping thing in not the Yorkshire Dales, in the Peak District.
Yeah.
But he needed it more for a disabled access rather than anything else.
Yeah, because you can walk around it.
Yeah. You know, so yeah, and then, you know, so that's just Jackaboard. You know, as I say, you can then go into the Jackadoor product, which wouldn't be tiling related, but you know, one of the things I get often, Shane, is people saying to me, "Oh, Jackaboard's not as good as Hardy or No More Ply, or it's not as good as Schluter." You know, it's a bit like adhesives. It's down to preferences.
It's funny, isn't it?
I will sell the benefits of our product, but it's down to personal preference.
Yeah, it's a funny thing with trades in general. Once I'm generalising here because not everyone's like this, but once they're into a brand, once a tradesman or tradeswoman is into a brand, it's very fucking difficult to get them to change.
Yeah,
and I understand why, because they know it. They know it works. They've got it, they know it won't let them down. So why would they change? But when you get the, I suppose you could call it like fan service. Like, obviously Schluter are amazing. I absolutely love Schluter. I would, if my company could follow Schluter's path, that would be the fucking dream, the brilliant at everything.
Yeah,
but you
without a doubt,
you can tend to get for no particular reason, people will say that's better than that, or that's not as good as that, or that's shit, and you're like, well, it's not shit, is it? It's just you prefer something else for whatever reason. So you do get a bit of that, and it's a loyalty thing as well, I suppose. It's like football fans tend to do it, like their team's the best in the world, and clearly they're fucking not.
Yeah.
It's just that it's one of them
Well,
things.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's a bit like, why do some people shop at Tesco and some shop at Sainsbury's, for argument's sake? It's personal choice at the end of the day,
I go to Aldi.
And I get that, and I'm not one of these. Yeah, well, I do as well, to be perfectly honest with you, but it's one of those things that I'm not going to sit here and say that I want 100% of the business, because I couldn't cope with 100% of the business.
No, it's not possible. You can't supply everyone.
You
can't do it.
And if I could, there wouldn't be a Schluter, there wouldn't be a Weddy, there wouldn't be plasterboard.
I always say this to people as well. It's like
everybody's got personal choices.
Yeah, you can't supply everyone. So when you get a competitor,
no,
it depends how they're approaching it, I suppose, because there's a way of doing it. You can be good or there's bad business and good business. But generally speaking, and this industry's terrible for it, you don't need to be paranoid about your competitors unless they're doing things like you explained to me before. But generally, people don't do that. The industry's generally got pretty sound, but they're all paranoid about each other, and that happens. They're like, "What's he doing? What are they doing over there?" I'm like, "Don't fucking worry about what they're doing over there. You do your thing. You're good at it. Doesn't really matter. If anything, you could probably help each other out by sharing knowledge, or sharing contacts, or whatever. But you don't tend to see it because there's a lot of paranoia that goes on. Yeah, I shop at Aldi, mate.
I often
did you know?
Say that again. Sorry.
Aldi. You on about Tesco and Aldi?
Yeah.
I wanted it's come up because it's like today's shopping day, and Aldi have stopped doing online.
Well, have they?
Yeah, you can't do Aldi online anymore. Gutted.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Right. I never did it online because I've got one just like. I just drop Linda off at work on a Friday morning, go into Aldi first thing before I start my day proper, so, it's great because I go in at 8 o'clock and it's empty.
Yeah.
And I can just whiz round,
I don't like going in. I'm very, don't like people. Yeah. So I just order it online, pull the car up, put it in the car, happy days.
Right.
They only did it for COVID, really. It's not really their business model, is it?
No, it's not.
They're very cheap, and they like to get you in the store, and they want you to buy some of that stuff in the middle.
Yeah,
that's their
tat.
Yeah. They need that. I think they need that because they're so cheap for everything else.
Yeah.
So they stopped. I think it's a big mistake. I think they're just going to lose some customers, which I suppose they're not bothered about because the ones that go in might spend more. Because I think when people shop online, they're a little bit more sensible. Yeah. They only get what they need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Yeah. I think they would have been better making that middle aisle more accessible online. That might have been the better option. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm not fucking Aldi. Yeah, they know better than me.
No, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But going back to your point earlier about competitors being paranoid and stuff like that, one of the things I've said to anybody that I've mentored, if you like, or been a manager of, I've always said, be aware of what your competition are doing, but please, if you have to sell on their weaknesses, you don't believe in your own strengths.
Yeah, that's a really bad, that's a really bad way of doing business, where the only way you can get on is by trash talking someone else.
Yeah.
If anyone ever does that, that's it for me. That's me and them done.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen it, even from a sales point of view. You walk in and you hear people slagging off everybody else, and you're like,
no,
do you not believe in your own product?
That's not the way you do it, but people do it.
Definitely not. Exactly.
I also don't like I don't like trash talking for no particular reason. And I've seen it loads of times. Loads of salesmen do that. And I also don't like, just tell us what the price is and we'll beat it. Like, that's not...
Yeah.
That's not a salesman talking to a buyer.
No.
We're talking about the price is later. We're talking about technical product, relationship, supply, support, training, whatever. Then later we'll talk about the price. Yeah. And it might be a bit more. It might be surprisingly cheap. It might, whatever. But that's not. If a salesman comes to me and says, just tell me what it is and I'll beat it, that's fucking shit business. You're not a good salesman.
Yeah, exactly. So, it is, I'm a great believer in, you have to believe in your product. You know, and fortunately, the folks that I've worked with over the years, the majority have believed in the product. You know, which is good.
You can tell when people
and that's how that's how I've built my, if I want to call it, a reputation. You know, within the industry, is I like to think that people trust me because I believe in what I'm doing.
Yeah, you can see, you can tell people's passion. That's why I won't name any names, right? But I've been talking to someone recently about particular companies. One of them exists right now, and I won't say who it is. But some companies, they're actually a marketing company. They just happen to manufacture stuff as well.
Yeah,
and I can spot them. I don't know if this is why I've probably got experience in dealing with people, but I can spot them a mile off. They're very good at marketing, but they haven't got a fucking clue about what they're doing. Like sometimes they're a manufacturer, or sometimes they're a distributor, or whatever. They're excellent at marketing and branding, and they've probably got very good people working for them who've got lots of experience in sales and marketing. But technically wise and relationship wise, they haven't got it. They don't know what they're on about. So
no, that's right.
Ultimately, and I won't name the companies, but a couple of them who were there, they're gone now. They failed because obviously they fucking failed because they've run by salesmen and marketing people. They're not the best people to run a business, but purely on marketing.
Exactly.
But the ultimately they're gonna, at some point, because they're not technical or they're not passionate about the technical side of things, they're gonna lie to you to get a sale. They're gonna pretend that something's true when it's not, and ultimately that'll bite them at some point.
Definitely.
Yeah. So social media. Are you on social media? I know you're on Facebook, but I don't know if you're on TikTok and things like that.
I'm not on TikTok. You just need to look at me. Could I do TikTok?
Yes.
Probably not.
Yeah.
You know, have I looked at it? You know.
Yeah. The reason I ask is I think you should do TikTok. And
okay.
I think you're an ideal you're an ideal person for TikTok.
Right. Okay.
Reason being, so obviously I know you from business, whatever, but a lot of people will know you from, you're almost mascot for Jackon. Is that? I don't mean that in a bad way.
No,
do you know where I'm
coming
from?
Yeah.
So you will do. You obviously enjoy doing it. They're not forcing you to do it. So you're a character.
No, I enjoy it. Yeah.
So this is why I don't think I can do TikTok. I'm not a character. I don't have any charisma. Where someone like yourself, 100%, would you, because you don't tend to be embarrassed about stuff. You're very happy-go-lucky, and this is I don't know you that well, but it seems that way to me anyway. So I think if you did what you do, so just for people listening, I've seen you on posters with wearing a kilt, doing a fucking what was it?
I was.
What do you call that?
Water skiing in Loch Ness.
Were you actually doing it?
No.
So, but you do wear kilts and things like that. I've seen you.
Yeah.
I've seen you dressed up as Prince.
Yep.
What was the other one? You've done things like that.
I was a bee.
That's it. Yeah.
I was dressed up as a bee. Yeah.
So.
And the first one that we did, it was Michael and I. Back in 2018, we dressed as the theme for the TTA that particular year was the Roaring Twenties.
Yeah.
So we turned up at the trade event during the day, dressed in 20s bathing suits. You know, the old stripy bathing suits.
I know. I was there. Bloody hell. So I think you should do TikTok, whether it's just for you personally, just for a laugh. So just for your personal life, or for the company, because you don't have to follow anyone's lead. Because I think you're a good, unique type of person to just come up with random shit. If the company wanted someone on social media, I think you'd be great for that. When you get marketing managers and they're like, "Yeah, we know about social media," they don't. They might. You need a specific type of person, and it's someone who's can put themselves out there. They're comfortable talking to camera. They're charismatic, all the rest of it. In a marketing company, they probably went to university and they know all the fucking ins and outs of how it should work. And then they put it into practice as like a jigsaw puzzle. Or we need to put all these things, and it doesn't work because it's too methodical. It needs to to be unique and charismatic and all those things. And I think you'd be good at it. That's why I ask. So you don't do anything like that?
No. The only social media that I would do would be, LinkedIn. I do a little bit on Instagram, but not a great deal. But, certainly from a company perspective, that is something I maybe should do more, or we as a team should do more.
Yeah, the only issue I foresee with you is because it's a corporation, they might not give you the freedom to do whatever you want, because they're always worried about fucking everything, aren't they? Like, don't swear, don't do this, don't do that, whatever. I don't know if Bevy's like that. Yeah, quite possibly. There would be probably some guidelines that we would need to watch, but then, is dressing up as Prince at the TTA within the guidelines, is walking about with a kilt and a piper within the guidelines? Possibly not, but there are certain things that you can do. As long as you're not bringing the company into any sort of disrepute, I don't think there would be an issue. Yeah, I think you should do it. Do it. It'd be great, honestly. I think it'd be good for you and your company, and you personally at some point could end up making money.
Sure.
You could end up making money from social media, personally. I think, honestly. So I've said this to people before. I always say to people, and I say it to my wife a bit, don't look at social media at other people and judge yourself against them, because that's not really them. Do you know what I mean? But what I find, you're one of the people who I look at and think, I suppose, I don't know the correct word, but I suppose I'd be jealous of the way. So tell me if I'm wrong. So in my eyes, you seem to enjoy your job immensely.
Yep.
You've got a really happy life with your missus and I don't, like I say, you're not on social media, so I don't really know. I'm guessing. And I'm doing the thing that I tell people not to do and judging myself versus other people. But you seem very content. And to me, because I'm never comfortable like that, ever. Never have been. Never really comfortable in work and always looking to settle in. Obviously, my family is great and brilliant, but so I look to someone like you and think he's got it fucking made. And you might not be rich, well, like money-wise, but in my eyes, you seem like you've got it together. Is that correct? Am I right, or am I doing the thing that I told people not to do?
You're probably doing the thing that you would tell people not to do.
Exactly.
I think, I can only relate it to, sort of like there's a lot of actors out there, aren't there, that when you actually meet them, they're completely different. Now, I wouldn't say I'm completely different, but whilst I enjoy what I do and the dressing up as Prince and in the kilt and all that sort of thing I do enjoy it, but there's a certain degree of, I don't like to be centre of attention, believe it or not.
Wow.
But doing something like that, you become centre of attention.
Yeah.
So, but it's almost like there's an alter ego that's the centre of attention, not me.
Yeah.
If you understand my meaning.
Yeah.
And there is an element of apprehension and stuff like that. But I also know that if I go to the TTAs next year and I'm not dressing up, people are going to wonder why.
Yeah, you've set yourself up now.
You're
going to have to come up with something else now.
Yeah. So I'm always having to continually think. Michael and I are continually thinking about what else we can do, So we are always thinking about it.
It's good though, because there's
multiple enjoy people. It.
Yeah, it's really good, because from all my videos of the show, obviously people like to get content from things like that, and you're giving it to them. Nobody will remember anything apart from Mike with a fucking bagpipe player walking behind him.
Yeah.
That's literally all I can remember from that show. So it's working.
Yeah.
People remember the brand and everything. So that's why I think you could come up with things for TikTok.
Right. Okay.
So what do you do outside of work, hobby wise?
I do a lot of running. I used to play football, but I knackered my cruciate ligament, so I had to take up something else. So after a while, I never really saw running as being something that I really would enjoy. But now that I do it, I do. So I think to date, since 2012, I've ran 7 marathons, countless halves, countless tens, and I do park run every Saturday. So I do that. That's as a hobby, that's what I do. I love cleaning my car, Shane. I have to say, I love cleaning my car. I like a clean car. My wife doesn't like it so much because I spend so much time doing it.
Really?
But I love family life as well. I've got 2 kids. Ross at 30, he'll be 34 next year, and Kirsty's 30 this year, and they've both got daughters as well. So I've got 2 granddaughters at 5-year-old. So
brilliant.
I love that aspect of life as well. And believe it or not, I haven't been for a while, but I am actually a regular, or was up until relatively recently for time and stuff like that. But I'm what I would call an evangelical Christian as well.
Oh, really?
And it's hard to believe because I don't go out preaching it, but
what does that entail?
Yeah. So I was a deacon at my local church. So basically, it wouldn't just be attending church for the sake of attending church, but I would have gone been speaking at various churches and proclaiming the gospel and things like that as well.
Wow.
That's another side that.
Have you done that for your whole life, or did you pick that up?
No, probably round about 1980, 79, 80 was when I started going to church. It wasn't something from the family. This was my choice.
That's interesting. So you did it yourself. What made you do that?
Yeah. I think, without going into deepest, darkest secrets on a podcast, before I was 16, I would have said I was bordering on being an alcoholic.
Right.
I started smoking when I was 8. I also gave up when I was 8, I have to say, because my mum found out and battered the living daylights out of me. But I started drinking, found women and all this kind of stuff, as you do at that age. And I was drinking probably half bottle to a bottle of vodka every 2 nights.
Wow. At 15?
So I was, about 14, 15. And then one night I was at a party and I woke up in a bath in somebody's house, covered in bruises and bleeding from hand to foot because they just beat me up because they could.
Yeah.
And from that day, I'm not saying I've never drank, but I'll only drink if I really want to. I don't touch vodka.
Why did you step foot in the church?
I think it was probably a bit of one of my friends went to church and he asked me to come along, and I went along to a sort of youth club type thing, and I just enjoyed it. It was a different type of atmosphere at the time. People seemed to want to get to know you as opposed to again, I'm sharing deep dark secrets here. I was bullied all through school, and this was, I suppose, and even in early work life as well, and this was a way of I could see that people actually wanted to get to know me as opposed to want to bully me into things, and it just sort of like went from there. Really started going along to church proper. It was an old style church I went to, and then I moved to a more evangelical
What does that mean? What's the
church
difference?
there. It was, well, I suppose the church I was in, you sang hymns, if you like, and you had an organ. They would never think of, oh, you can't have a guitar in here, or you can't clap your hands or anything like that. So I went to more evangelical, where it was a band that were playing, and it was a bit more
get up and do something.
I'm going to say, a bit more raucous, if you like. And it just sort of like went on from there. And then when we moved down here, I found a church that was very similar to what we were in up north. And that was, so that's, I haven't done it for a few weeks, but that's probably months. But a lot of that is down to, at the minute, there's a lot of work stuff going on. There's a lot of family stuff going on. So,
brilliant.
It's, so that's another side of me that you found out.
Well, that's a good side of religion as well, isn't it? So, you've just told me all those things.
I don't see it as just a religion.
Yeah,
I don't see it as just a religion. It's, for me, it's a way of life. I'm not one of these guys that, I think a lot of people look at religion as being the thing that causes a lot of wars and stuff like that. Yeah, it possibly has, but that's not what I'm about.
Over thousands of years. So I never wash my car. I never go running or do any exercise. And I'm not religious in any way whatsoever.
Right.
So that's just more things to me. I'm not really interested in being religious, to be honest with you, but I'm very open to people that are, because it really interests me. If someone tells me they're into something, I'll ask them, like, what does that entail? Because it really interests me. Especially when it helps them. When it helps them, that's the good side of it, of any religion, because someone's using it.
Yeah, of course it is.
To make their life better.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. It's a bit like, just because I now don't drink or smoke, like my wife enjoys a glass of wine, or two, or three, or whatever it may be, but I'll not sit and judge her just because I don't. And I don't do that with anybody, because at the end of the day, we all have life choices to make, and it's the life choices are the life choices that suit you.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody's an individual, mate.
Exactly.
So I think I've asked you everything that I wanted to ask you, mate. The only one thing that I usually ask people to do, and you kind of explained, like, if somebody. So I think it'd be better if you could address this to a tradesman or a tiler specifically, because of what you do. Maybe a builder. Yeah. It's related, isn't it?
Yeah.
If they wanted to do what you do, or they think that they could probably do what you do, how do they do it? At any age, obviously you did it you found your way into it from a young age. But if somebody wanted to do it or thought they could do it, how do they do it? And have you got any jobs going?
The simple answer is I don't have any jobs going. Not at the moment, anyway. But I'm not to say that in the future there won't be. But how can I put it? Because I can be. What's the word I'm thinking of here? I can actually look at myself and think, do you know what? I haven't done anything special to get to where I've got to. I haven't done anything special. I sometimes wrongly would say that, do you know what? I don't really have any skills, not like a car mechanic or a tiler. All I've got is an ability to listen to people and talk to people about my product, whatever that product may be. So if you're prepared to listen and prepared to talk about the USPs of your particular product, whatever that may be, to me, that's simple. There's no rocket science associated with it. I don't care what anybody says, Shane. These folks that say, "Oh, you've got to do training courses to improve your, understanding the closing of a sale and stuff like that." You'll know if you listen when you can close a sale.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Yes, there are steps that you would follow, but everybody's an individual. I remember going into my very, very first sales call, and you know, this person, I was going in and I was doing the whole Johnson's thing because you had to do it the correct way. And I walked in and I had my presenter and I said, I'm here to merchandise that wall and this is what I'm going to do. And they looked at me and they went, if you can't come in here as you and you're going to come in and do all this crap, see, I suggest you just turn around and walk out. And from that day, I've thought, I have to toe the line as far as Johnsons are concerned because they're paying my wages, especially my bosses with me. But when I'm on my own, it's me.
Yeah.
People buy from people. It's as simple as that. So if you treat people properly, you're trustworthy, you do as you say you're going to do, that's it, mate.
Yeah.
Really?
So two of those things, the two bits of advice that you always hear, and they sound simple, but very few people actually know what you're saying. So be yourself and listen.
Yep.
Listening is probably the most difficult skill you can learn. And it's not, listening isn't your ears work. Listening is a different skill. It's hard to listen.
Yeah.
There's something else I try and explain to my kids. Are you actually listening?
Yeah.
Just by saying nothing and listening, you'll learn a lot. And
of course.
You'll get a lot. And then just be yourself. Being yourself.
You can listen and you can hear.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. You can listen and you can hear. If you listen, you'll pick things up. If you hear, you just hear it.
Yeah.
You know. And my mother taught me at a very young age, you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth, and it's in that ratio you should use them.
That's a great bit of
advice. There is something in that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So for me, listen, be yourself and have confidence in not only your own ability, but have confidence in the product that you're trying to sell. Whether you're a tiler trying to sell your services, it's exactly the same thing. Or a builder trying to build something. You know, if you're trying to sell that service to somebody, you have to listen, understand what they want, and then meet their requirements.
Yeah.
And offer advice.
You can tell when people, it took me years to understand this. I was probably in my 30s to be yourself. When you're not being yourself, and when someone isn't being themselves, or they're like pretending or being pretentious for whatever reason, you can tell.
Yeah.
It's obvious. Yeah. And when someone is being...
You get found out very quickly.
Exactly. And when someone is being themselves, it's strange because they attract attention. Like, people like them more. And that you can't put your finger on what it is. And it's because they're not pretending anything. You might not agree with them, but they're just being themselves. They don't pretend to like something they don't like. They don't pretend something... They're just being themselves. And it brings them attention. And people, a lot of the time, don't understand what being yourself and listening actually means. No. I suppose it sounds too simple.
Yeah, I remember somebody saying to me, it was a friend of mine that had been talking to somebody else, and they'd said to me that this somebody else had said that I was a really nice guy, and I thought, right. I don't know how they can think I'm a really nice guy, because all I did was listen to what they were telling me.
Yeah.
I never said a word. They just spoke to me, but I'm a really nice guy. Now, you sort of think about, you know, as you look into the profoundness of that, it's like, it's because you listen.
Yeah.
You know?
Correct.
So that's it, mate. That's me. Cool. I hope you've got a bit of an insight into me. And I hope it's a good insight.
Mate, I could speak to people for hours and hours and hours, and I personally, I've had to train myself to ask the right questions for things like this. But personally, So how long have we been doing this now? We're getting on for 3 hours.
Well, we started at about 1:30. Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like it, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
I could easily talk to people for hours, especially if they're interested.
Yeah, sure. So, oh, well, that's good. I must have been quite interesting. Yeah.
Well, you are interesting. You know, I'll speak to you anyway, and we don't have to do a podcast. So that's brilliant, mate. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Well done, mate. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
Top man.
And if you need anything else from me, just give me a shout.
I will do, mate.
It'll be good to catch up at some point. Now that I know you're in Stoke, I didn't realise that's where you were. But now that I know you're in Stoke, next time I'm down that way, I'll give you a call and we'll meet up for a coffee or something.
Come and have a brew, mate.
Yeah.
Happy days.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Cheers, mate.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, Shane. Cheers,
Thanks,
mate. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye, everybody.